So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining. We continue today, never ending, with book number 2. Book number 2 is, let's give the introduction, called Chinuch Katan, which loosely translated means, how would you, the education for the katan means the small one. What that means exactly, we'll get to. Likutei Amarim Chelik Sheni. It is entitled again. Likutei means a compilation of teachings. The Alter Rebbe in his humility only calls it a compilation, meaning taking from others. Who's he taking from? He's taking from Melukat Mipi Sfarim. It is compiled from sacred books and from teachers of heavenly saintliness. So, of course, referring to the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizrach Magid. And, in other words, giving full credit to others and not to himself. And it is based on the first paragraph of the Shema. What is the Shema all about? The Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Hashem is one, the oneness of God. Another term that this is called is Shar Yichud Ve'emunah, the gateway for Yichud, meaning unity, God's unity, and Emunah and faith. What is our faith? What is our concept in understanding God's unity? Now, when we say the word faith over here, we don't mean blind faith. On the contrary, what the Alter Rebbe is going to show to us is quite the opposite, that the teachings in this second part are actually Chabad, intellectual, very, actually what I'd like to call it is pure physics. It's going to be a little more abstract, a little more theoretical than what we learned previously. Previously, we were learning about self-mastery. We're learning how we can be in control of thought, speech, and action in our lives. How we can truly change myself in the world around me to a godly world, the light of God that will encompass myself in the world around me. Now, that being said, that's all based on an idea of God's unity, God found in the world as creator of the world. So the first part was more personal in the sense it's about us becoming what we need to become. The second part, which initially the Alter Rebbe thought to put it as the first part, is the basis of everything. What's our beliefs? What do we truly believe when it comes to God as creator? Because before I have the personal relationship with God, I need to be able to know that God is the creator of everything, of me and everything around me. So when I have that personal belief, then I can have that personal relationship. So the Alter Rebbe actually initially wanted the second part to be first, but switched it around because ultimately this is the fundamentals, but the fundamentals, just like a building, you have the foundation and everything is built upon it. So this is the foundation, but ultimately it's about, the upper floors and reaching up with an edifice, way above the foundation that's in the ground. So ultimately that's what God wants, is that we should reach up to the heavens above And therefore, the first part, Sefer Shel Beinanim, on what it means to become that Beinani, is indeed, comes first, and this part comes second. So, again, when we say the word Shar Yichud, the gateway to unity and belief and faith, we're talking about here an intellectual understanding that will lead us to a greater knowledge in the unity and the oneness of God that will ultimately bring us to a deeper, profound faith, trust in God, ultimately. All right, so that's the introduction. The Alter Rebbe begins this with a quote from King Solomon, from Mishlei, Ecclesiastics. And it is, educate your child according to his way, her way. And then continues, even as he grows old, he will not depart from it. So the Alter Rebbe says, on this phrase from King Solomon, well, if you're educating the child according to the child's way, obviously it's not the way of truth, because it's the child's way. It's not the truthful way. Well, if that's the case, then why would it be that when that child grows up, right, when, as the verse continues, that when the child grows up old, that will not depart from it? Maybe you should depart from it. After all, it wasn't an education based on truth. It was education based on the needs of the child. But when you grow older, depart from that. Now, on a simple level, one can understand this verse, but the Alter Rebbe is being very precise and exacting, and ultimately, in order to give us a profounder appreciation of this statement of King Solomon. So the Alter Rebbe begins to give us an explanation, and it's only the beginning today. We will continue and finish it tomorrow, God willing. And that is that in our relationship with God, love and awe, or love and fear, are the fundamentals of our connection to God. The love will bring us to do for God. Now, as we've explained in the previous 53 chapters, and we'll touch upon it very briefly now, the different and various types of love bring us to do, right? Because what's the idea of love? Is to bring us to do something ultimately for another, to do something for God. And what's the idea of fear? Fear is the presence of God, not fear of punishment, as we've said many times, but the fear of recognizing God is present, and because of that, we act differently, which means we refrain from certain activity. Just like someone is in the room, we refrain from a certain activity that if that person wasn't in the room, that we may engage in, right? So that's what we explained in previously in chapters 4 and 41 and so on in the first part of Tanya. By the way, the Alter Rebbe, just to bring out the point that the Alter Rebbe wanted this part of Tanya to be the first part of Tanya, because in Hebrew he writes in this introduction, "Kimoy she'it ba'er bimkoman," as it will be explained in its proper place, which is in chapters 4 and 41 and further, which will be, meaning this is first and that will be explained, but it was already explained. So the Alter Rebbe, I guess, wanted us to, the Alter Rebbe was very aware of the tense, that he put it into future tense, even though he already put it initially in the first book, and so therefore it's past tense, but he wanted us to be aware that this is the foundation that is necessary for us to have a relationship, a personal relationship with God, and that we should ultimately be able to strive towards being who we need to become. So, the Alter Rebbe explains like this. When it comes to the love of God, as again we've learned earlier, there's two fundamentals. There's a love that is something we will not be able to achieve unless we're righteous, or Mashiach will come, we'll be able to achieve it. And what is that love? That love is a gift from above. Ava b'tainugim, ava rabba, a delight, and a delight in God. Delighting in God, not because, he did something wonderful for me today. That's not delighting in God. That's delighting in what he did for me. Right? And that's how we mostly love people, is because what they do for us, so we love them. That's why this is a gift from above that can only be achieved after you've gone through all the other levels of divine worship. So, only for the righteous today, and ultimately for all of us in times of Mashiach. Simchut tzadikim b'Hashem, rejoice in God, you righteous ones, and we will not be privileged to this lofty level that is of a neshama level. We can have a nefesh ruach level of connection, but not this. So what's the second level that all of us can attain? We need to meditate a bit about our relationship with God. So one is if you recall in chapter 44, that was that God is my life. And just as I love myself, and therefore the greatest thing I love about myself is life itself. That's how much I love God. Because he is my life. He's my soul. He's my vitality. He's everything. Fine. That makes sense. Right? One level. And then, and of course, when we contemplate that, it will bring us to that love of God. In other words, naturally, I have a love for myself. For me to have that, to be able to have a love for God, I need to be able to think about, meditate upon, that God is indeed my very life. Form of love is the reciprocal love, which was chapters 46 through 49, which meant, as just as God has taken me out of my dunghill, of my restrictions, my restraints, my small-mindedness, my human condition, God's taken me out of there. How? He gave me Torah mitzvahs. He gave me a vehicle that is of an infinite quality, that can have an infinite connection with him, and allows me to rise above the human condition, rise above my stuff, my self-imprisonment, or there's self-imprisonment that I put myself into, right? There is the imprisonment of what I am, just by the nature of the fact that my soul is in a body that is restraining, and again, what I do to myself. And God gives me a capability that I can get beyond that. I don't have to be defined by me, my animating animal soul. I don't have to be defined by the human condition. I can rise above that, and God gives me the Torah mitzvahs that I can do that. And therefore, of course, when we think about that, that gives me a desire to cleave, wanting to cleave to him out of love for him, that he's given this to me. And therefore I will reciprocate and give everything towards him in divine service. That's it for today. Where are we going with this? Well, there's going to be what we call a child's love of God, which is actually what we've just described. And we'll see. We'll have to wait for more. The child's love versus, shall we say, the adult, the greater love. More to come, folks. Stay tuned. This is the introduction to section 2, part 2, book 2, of Tanya Shar Yichud Ve'amuna. And any questions? For those who'd like to come and join us tonight on a 10 talk, 10 people talking, in preparation for Shavuos. That will be on Facebook, Chabad, ZK, or Zoom. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from my home in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and pleasure to share with you Tanya. Have a wonderful day.